What do I say?
Hey guys, welcome to On the DL, and this is episode 3.
Hey guys, welcome to On the DL, and this is episode 3.
Thank you.
I shall leave now.
Thanks, Bridie.
I'm not qualified.
She's pretty fabulous, but
Yeah, she's pretty good. She's not too bad, not too shabby. I hear she's okay at powerlifting.
yeah, she's kind of strong. I've heard.
Kinda,
Just some rumors.
kinda,
You know,
maybe.
you guys can watch her in the background repping out 80. But, you know.
All right. Welcome guys. Dakota.
Lan.
And today we want to cover accountability from the coach's perspective and the client's perspective. And now I just want to say that this is not to name and shame any coaches or anything like that, not meant to insult anyone, more so just kind of covering the topic.
Yeah, understanding what we've seen in our experience and what we've seen works, and maybe some things that are potentially detrimental depending on the client.
Yeah, I think, accountability is really good when it is needed. I think a lot of people need that accountability for the motivation. They need someone to answer to. They need someone to stay on their back and say, okay, like this, how did you go? Constantly checking in. Some people need it, some people don't. Some people need it quite a lot, and some people only need a little bit. And I think it can be good, but I also think it can be turned into a negative if taken too far.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. I think, there's so many different forms of accountability, right? So you've got your weekly calls, you've got your checklists, tracking sheets, you've got daily scale weight,
My Fitness Pal, if you use it.
That's it. There's like 101 different ways to do accountability. And I think kind of what our point is going to be today is pick the type of accountability that's suitable to the client and suitable for the coach as well, right? Like, you and I track fairly differently, but I understand how you do it, you understand how I do it, and I can see the value in the way you do it and vice versa. So it's not that I don't like the way Dak tracks or vice versa, we just do it differently and that's okay. So when we're talking about forms of accountability, talk through how you go about deciding what to do with what clients.
So, every client being different and depending on where they're at. So, you can have monthly check-ins, you can have weekly check-ins, you can have face-to-face check-ins, you can have video call check-ins, you can just have a phone call or just a text. It depends on the person. Some people don't like to have that phone conversation. Some people don't like to speak on camera. Some people like to just text. Some people need a lot of accountability in terms of quite a lot of details, like if somebody's going through, okay, I need to drink less alcohol, then you're obviously going to take more consideration on, okay, like how can we stop that? Or more so if people need control, and more so, okay, have you been compliant? How many days have you been compliant? Like, let's kind of break down why you haven't been compliant. So like that's, but it's different for everyone. It's dependent on what the person needs, and ways, like some people don't need to stay compliant. So it's like, well, maybe they just need a little bit less. But everyone's different. Like how, I know that there's that the app 8 that I stole off of you.
Look,
and that's
to be honest, I didn't create it, guys, but
I'm sure she created it. And that's great. I have clients who go away on a holiday, and I'm not going to ask them to stay on track or stay 100%
My Fitness Pal everything.
I wouldn't. Enter everything in. Take an hour from your holiday and enter everything in. No, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to do that. So
and it immediately impacts how much you enjoy your holiday, right?
Exactly.
Whereas the 8 app works by just snapping a photo, right? So you snap a photo if you've done something that is particularly bad. So if you've gone out and done a little bit of a binge, it gives you the opportunity to say why you did it, how you felt after you did it, But like me, I think you don't make your clients fill that in every time. It's more just when they've made a choice that they know is detrimental or that they know is not going to service them, we get them to fill that information out so that they can see patterns of behaviour. It's really just recognize it so that you can address it, right? So
it's interesting because most of the time my forms of accountability is actually forcing people to go have a meal that they don't want to, or like go have, like I have one client who wanted to bring her packaged breakfast to a breakfast date, and I'm like, okay, the form of accountability is I need you to go have breakfast and enjoy it and be okay with it. Like, that's what I'm finding is I'm trying to get people to relax a little bit.
Because I don't know if you found this, but since bodybuilding became a really big thing in Australia, it's like the average person thinks they have to eat like a bodybuilder to achieve a decent physique. That's a real problem, because there's a reason that a bodybuilding season is short, right? Like, they'll usually prep for 12 to 20 weeks, right? And they can maintain it for that period of time because there's an end game. There's something that they're trying to achieve, and when they achieve it, they know that they can go back to some level of normality. Bodybuilders know that they have to take, they might have to take their brunch to a brunch date, but it's for those 12 to 20 weeks, not for the next 10 years. So it's like all of these things that used to be just applicable in bodybuilding have seeped into the average everyday person, where they're just not necessary, guys. Like, if you're really that worried, order poached eggs with spinach and mushrooms, and you're not going to go too far off track, right? And then you can at least enjoy the social aspect of it. There's better ways to approach these things, and I think one of the things that you mentioned gets you fearful sometimes about the way some people approach tracking, accountability, is that it can get to a point where it's so excessive that it almost pushes you towards eating disorder behaviors or disordered eating patterns, right? And that's huge. That's, the opposite of what every coach is trying to achieve. I don't think any coach, even the ones that do these forms of tracking, I don't think their intention is ever to create an eating disorder, but it truly can. If you create a situation where if your daily scale weight goes up for a second, your coach is telling you that you've done something wrong,
Fucked up. You've gone off plan.
Then, of course, it's going to create these negative food behaviours, these relationships with food, where food starts falling into a good or a bad category instead of a everyday and sometimes category.
Like, I've heard coaches drop clients because they were non-compliant.
Oh god!
Like, that's crazy.
Well, isn't it our job to help them become?
If you want to kill someone's trust, do that. Like, that's a whole other level of crazy.
I think we've definitely both experienced where clients are dishonest, and for us, that's much more of a problem, isn't it?
But we know.
Yeah,
we know. You can't lie.
And if you're dishonest, all you're doing is a disservice to yourself and to your coach, because your coach can't help you if you're not telling them what difficulties you're facing. So from an accountability perspective, so I personally will either use weekly phone calls for clients who prefer it that way, tracking checklists for a lot of my online clients. They find that it's useful because it both tracks the data, but it tracks also, changes in energy levels. It tracks the positives that you've done, not just the negatives. So it gets to show you, okay, this whole week I ate really, really well, and regardless of my scale weight, so it's done what it's done. I hit my water intake, I trained really well, my training adherence was up, I attended every session, So you've not only got the metrics, but you've got all of this positive environmental feedback that's, supporting you to keep driving forward. Then I also do body fat analysis. I don't really do progress pictures. I never have. I'm not really sure why. It was just never my go-to. I think because a lot of people are self-conscious and not everyone's super comfortable with getting down into their bra and undies and taking photos. And because I have the benefit of seeing almost all of my clients in person, I can do the body fat analysis, and it makes it easier for me. On top of that, the body fat analysis tells me other things as well. So sort of some health concerns, yada, yada, yada. So I can use that data to get better results for the clients. So those are the methods that I usually use. You mentioned the 8 app, which
the 8 app's really good, just for a less obsessive approach.
Definitely,
like a little bit more casual. I like photos for my majority of my clients are not even in Victoria, so I like photos more so to see, you know, where they're holding weight, and you know, most of my clients do train and are powerlifters, so obviously muscle mass is a concern.
Definitely.
So, you know, scale weight doesn't even begin to show any of that. So it's the photos for me are really good to show the changes that the scale doesn't show.
It's also great for longer term feedback, because short term feedback just doesn't tell you a huge amount. In a week, you're not going to see noticeable differences in the mirror, but over an 8-week period, you're most likely going to see some great change. So having those photos and being able to sort of say to somebody who sends you their weekly check-in,
look what you've done.
This is where you started, this is where you are now, because we've all done it where we've taken progress photos or measurements and it hasn't changed a lot in a week or 2 weeks, and then we get down on ourselves and then when you look back at where you started, it's like, oh, actually,
I find that, like, when you lose all the weight, it's like you kind of feel like you've just been there the whole time. Like, you forget that you were, like, you forget that you lost 5 kilos, or you forget that you were a little bit fatter, and you're like, but I've just looked like this for the entire time. Nothing has changed.
Exactly.
And you're like, wow, I used to look like that. Wow.
And you have to do that from time to time. You have to go back, because you have to appreciate what you've been able to do and what you've been able to achieve. If you can't do that, what was the point in any of it in the first place? So what forms of tracking have you seen people use that have caused issues for your clients? So I know you've had a few clients that have come in with disordered eating patterns, and they've said that they feel it was triggered by certain things that an old coach has done, What sort of things have you seen?
So I've seen unfortunately I've seen a lot. Some of the main ones that I've seen pop up a little bit more than not is quite restrictive diets, in terms of you can only eat these 5 vegetables, you can't eat carbohydrates, you can't eat you can't eat past this time, you can only eat this list of foods, and then we'll see how you go and maybe we can introduce some. So one example is, you know, just really way too restrictive for, you know, obviously if you've got health concerns, if there are certain goals in some foods that you can't eat, like gluten, dairy, you know, it could be anything. Intolerances
and allergies is not what we're talking about here, right?
But, like, I just don't see the point. Because, you know, she can lose the weight with all of those foods. So that's what kills me, when they're just overly restrictive for no reason, and then it kind of sets the client up to fail, because nobody's going to stick to that. No one.
That, I'm telling you right now, that a lot of that has come out of the bodybuilding industry, and I was a bodybuilding coach for 10 years, guys, so nothing against the bodybuilding industry. It's just that, you know, if you look at traditional old school bodybuilding diets, it was always chicken, brown rice and broccoli, or chicken, brown rice and green beans, or something along those lines. So because people got such great results with those foods, now we tend to sort of apply it in situations where it doesn't need to be applied, and that does become an issue. Also, it sort of teaches you that the more you remove, the better the results you'll get, which is not true. But when you've been through that experience, it starts to become very true for you. Another thing that some coaches will do is, if you do gain over that period of a week, they'll remove your carbohydrates for a period of time or something along those lines, which again reinforces this idea that carbs are bad, and if you remove them, they're going to...
And a week is nothing. A week of fluctuation is nothing.
Absolutely. Think about menstrual cycle. Think about all the things that could potentially affect it. Salt. A little bit too much tamari that week, you know. There's all sorts of things that can fluctuate it. But if the accountability side of things is you tell your coach this and your coach responds with that, you're going to start, either fibbing because you don't want that
repercussions,
or you're going to start eliminating those things yourself when you feel like it's necessary, which again screws up the system anyway. So, you know, if you feel that your coach is going to remove your carbohydrates if your scale weight has gone up, you're not going to wait for your coach to tell you that the next time. You're just going to remove it so that you don't have to have that discussion, and so that your scale weight comes back down.
And that's a great segue to, you know, one of the other issues that I found is that some coaches can kind of take the accountability too far. So I think creating or helping the client create good habits is really good, and I think being there for the support and for the accountability is really good. But if you're there every single moment of every single time they fuck up, or it's like, you go out for dinner and I ate a little bit over and the person is there, like if you're there too much, what happens when the client needs to stop, or what happens when you're not there?
Yeah, where's the independence? What are they learning?
Yes,
because they're basically just doing as they're told. As a coach, you should be wanting to educate your clients, not just to tell them what to do every day. When you teach someone how to squat, you're not assuming that every squat they're going to do for the rest of their lives is going to be in front of you. So they need to actually learn the technique. They need to learn the movement pattern. Same with nutrition. If you can explain to your client why they're only allowed to have that one vegetable, I would be very impressed. Like, I'd be very, very intrigued to hear that explanation. But this is the problem. People don't ask a lot of questions. Either it goes one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
Either people are really... they question everything so much that there's no real trust.
Yes.
Or they don't question anything and then they don't learn anything.
Yeah.
If your coach is asking you to do something and you're unsure as to why your coach is asking you to do it, ask them. 9 times out of 10 they'll have an answer for you, and the 1 time out of 10 that they don't, they'll find out because they've heard it somewhere.
Yeah.
And now they've just got to go and figure out where they heard it or why they're applying it, because they probably did research it at some point. But over the years, you remember the theories.
Yeah.
You don't remember
You remember
thing.
some of it, but not like the stuff that you don't need to know. You remember the little things.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So it's all, you got to bring it back to understanding and application, because then when you're not with your coach anymore, you can go off and make better choices, Don't fall into that trap, which is both-sided. We're not saying it's just the coach either here, because you have to be responsible for asking the questions.
100%. Yeah.
But don't fall into that trap where it is just literally, okay, if it's written down, that's what I'll do. You want to understand it. You want to understand why you're doing what you're doing, so that you can continue to make better decisions in the rest of your life.
I think definitely, accountability is needed as long as it's not taken too far. At the end of the day, a client can reach their goals without being 100% perfect, and you can't treat a client like they have to be. Nobody is.
In terms of business, it's like being a micromanager. Doesn't actually help anyone. Means you end up doing more work. The client, the staff don't feel respected. There's all these sorts of negative feedback from it. So micromanagement doesn't help anybody. The person who's micromanaging feels really important and very, like they're powerful for 5 minutes, but it doesn't actually serve anybody's purpose. It probably comes from some form of insecurity where they need to have control over it all. But we got to get away from that. Really got to get away from that.
I think accountability is an awesome tool, but if you're having a panic attack when your coach doesn't reply, then there's something that needs to change. Coaches are there to obviously assist you and help you to get to your goal, but you're an adult.
We're there to educate and support, not babysit.
Yes, 100%. I ain't your mama.
Apparently around here I've got the nickname Auntie Lan, so I'm not so far off.
One day.
All right, I reckon we should wrap it up.
Yes, let's wrap it up.
Thanks for listening, guys. We can't wait to see you again.
See you soon.